morning. Ooh. We are going to get going. We want to be really respectful of everybody's time, and we know that businesses probably have lots of things to do today. So we're gonna just start. There's some props in the back. Please feel free to take a look at those. So what we want to, I'm just going to give a little brief introduction here. The bylaw is a handout, and the items that are banned is a handout. So again, very specifically, this is a bylaw that was approved at a special town meeting last October. It's been approved by the Attorney General, and I'm Libby Gibson, Town Manager. I've got a little bit of a work group that's working on public outreach, education, and getting the word out about this bylaw and the upcoming ban on June 1st, 2020. So the items banned, and again, this is commercial sale and distribution only. This is not for residential prohibitions. So the items banned are straws and drink stirrers, 6-pack can and bottle flexible yolks, not 4-pack, 6 only, drinking cups and lids, non-compostable plates and eating utensils, drinking water in PET or PETE containers of 1 liter or less. And please note, most of these water bottles are made of PETE, and there's a little code at the bottom, a little triangular arrowed symbol with a 1 in the middle of it. And this is drinking water only. It's not flavored water. It's not carbonated water, plain drinking water. And lastly, non-recyclable coffee pods. So as I mentioned, we're working on public outreach efforts. This is our second public informational session. This is a little bit of a bigger crowd, actually, than we had at the first one. I just did a PSA on the radio a couple last week, so that's going to start happening, and we're working on a number of other outreach initiatives. We're also trying to schedule meetings with some of our bigger commercial businesses that this is going to really impact, such as Stop and Shop, NIR, groups like that, Cumberland Farms, package stores. We're going to be meeting with all of them, hopefully in groups throughout the fall and into the winter. Bruce Mandel is the citizen who put forward this initiative that ended up being approved at town meeting. It was amended from what his initial proposal was, and I'm going to have him talk a bit about what the reasoning is behind his initiative. Bruce?
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay? Okay. The initiative for this bylaw was taken from several initiatives on the mainland, particularly Concord. And they had a mild bylaw that simply banned the PET water bottles. Their concern was there were microplastics in the bottle. It was a health issue. It was a litter issue. And interestingly enough, it passed, and then 3 other towns passed similar bylaws. Their issue, of course, is you can just go to the next town and buy it, so it's not as effective as we're hoping ours will be. Recently, communities on Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard have also taken the initiative, interestingly driven by 5th graders, to ban the town's use of these particular bottles of water as a first step. We took a bigger step. We added other petroleum-based plastic single-use items. And as Libby mentioned, it's petroleum-based plastics. There are other types of plastics that are plant-based. Plant-based plastics break down and biodegrade into plant-based materials. Petroleum-based plastics break down into smaller pieces of petroleum-based plastics. And these micro pieces of plastic are now being discovered, for example, in water bottles that you and I can purchase anywhere. And they've recently discovered that there are some other chemicals in them that are not particularly good for pregnant women and people with certain diseases. So the process is ongoing. We need to adjust many of the things we're doing with this bylaw as we go along. We're learning on the way. We're learning that the waste processing process needs to adjust a little bit. We know that the commercial people like you guys need to adjust a little bit. The reason we targeted this bylaw at commercial sale, use, and distribution was twofold. Number one, we didn't want to penalize families and individuals and burden them with this. They're already burdened with the responsibility and cost of recycling everything on this island. We wanted to send a message to the manufacturers and distributors that they need to help us by changing how they distribute. And when we found out that the manufacturers and distributors actually have alternate products that are not petroleum-based plastics, just a little bit more expensive for them, a couple of tenths of a penny more for a plastic six-pack holder that's biodegradable. We want the manufacturers to take the responsibility and the cost away from the individual. Interestingly, back in the 80s, Massachusetts actually passed a regulation requiring that the flexible yolks be biodegradable. And to identify them, there has to be a little tiny diamond embossed in them. You can find some of those here, but most of the distributors are ignoring this regulation. And you'll find that if you look at some of your flexible holders, you won't see that diamond embossed on it. We have to figure out how we're going to change our waste stream for this. But we're starting by implementing solutions we think are gonna work. We'll continue to revisit them and update them as we learn. There are good points and bad points. We need information from you commercial users. We need information from other people, health people, in order to adjust what we're doing. So we added things to the bylaw like I call K-cups. They go in these brewing machines, single cup brewing machines. You'll see a display back there. Those cups don't biodegrade. They're not even compostable here. But there are alternatives that you can use. So those brewing machines can still be used. And there are examples back there showing that. The same thing with the straws. You know, there was the straw initiative on Nantucket. Well, we now know that there are biodegradable and compostable straws, and they're getting better. There's even a plant-based straw that looks like a regular plastic straw because it actually is a plastic straw, but it's plant-based. Millie's uses these. They can be obtained through the distributor. Their distributor is Trimark. I'm sure there are others. But these are available now. There are silicone straws for people that need them. Medically, some people chomp down on their straws and whatnot. These go to the dishwasher. They last years. So there are alternatives to everything in that bylaw that makes sense for Nantucket. We want to help the landfill extend its useful life by not dumping these non-biodegradable, non-compostable things on the landfill to process. We want to protect our groundwater from having the plastics leach into the groundwater, the petroleum-based plastics leach into our groundwater. So there's a lot of reasons behind this. It's inconvenient. It's a stumbling thing that we're going through now, and in implementing it, we need your help and feedback, and any questions are going to help us refine the process. So I appreciate any questions you have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Bruce. So to wrap up and get to the questions, our work group is also looking at some potential amendments to the bylaw. We already have a biodegradable packaging regulation that is enforceable. It's enforced now through the health department, although it's technically a Board of Public Works regulation. so there are already some measures in place for businesses to use biodegradable packaging, but we're talking more about moving towards compostable packaging if and when we can. So we're working on a kind of a merger of these two things. We're also looking at the potential of some other refinements, such as including all plastic flexible yolks, not just 6-pack, because we've already had a number of questions about whether or not 4-packs are applicable. Plastic nip bottles is something that we may be talking about. That was originally included in Bruce's article. It was taken out. There was a lot of objection to it, and I think the end discussion was, let's not bite off more than we can chew at the beginning and take it easy going forward. Boxed water is something that has also come up. Boxed water has, Graham and Bruce probably know more about this, but it has a plastic coating on the inside, so it's really not biodegradable. And it's not as great as everybody says it is. So we're maybe gonna take a look at that as well. If people have questions later, or if you think of something, we've established an email that you can go directly to that also helps us segregate out of all of our email these particular questions. It's ACK-Plastics-Ban, ACK Plastics Ban at nantucket-ma.gov. That's the town's email address. So we would like to open it up questions. Let me introduce some of my work group people, though, so that you know who's working on this. Myself, Graham Durovich is our recycling coordinator. Bruce is our citizen petitioner, and he's been very helpful in our work group. Janet Schulte is our director of culture and tourism. Roberto Santamaria is our public health director. Rachel Harbauer is in the back from Remain. She's been very, very helpful. Emily Molden from Nantucket Land Council. And is that everybody from the work group that's here? Yep. And I see we have a board member, Jason Bridges. Thank you, Jason, for coming. And Jason has a business too, so he's really seeing this from a lot of different angles. Okay, questions? Yes.
Are you going to, my name's Jay Loving, I work for US Foods. Are you going to enforce, I know I've talked to Roberto a lot, like the takeout container? I mean, I know it's in there, but there's loopholes if it's reusable, if it's microwave safe, if it's dishwasher safe. So I get this problem in restaurants where I'm like, you should be buying this, and they're like, well, so-and-so uses this black bottom because it's used. So there's always that out there that's kind of blocking just the whole transition.
Those are going to be banned. Non-compostable plates and eating utensils, drinking cups and lids. Actually, this may be a loophole right now because we're specifying plates and eating utensils. Yep, and
this is the takeout container.
Yeah, so takeout containers are supposed to be biodegradable right now. Anyway.
Right, supposed to.
Roberto?
To Jay's point, there is definitely a loophole in the original biodegradable packaging bylaw that allows reusable to be used, which the polypropylene containers, the black bottom containers are reusable, microwave safe, dishwasher safe, whole 9 yards. So some people are using it. If I'm not mistaken, that is a number 3 plastic, which you are banning in this bylaw. So it does close that loophole in our biodegradable bylaw packaging regulation. But anyone who's really going through and scouring through, there's going to be loopholes that we're going to be finding as we go through and having to close as we go. But it's a great point. Takeout containers, I don't know if they're specified in this bylaw. It's something that we'll have to look into. But it's a point that you bring up, and now that you brought it up, we're going to be looking into it.
Well, I know you looked at it. If you go into the year saying, look, you got to switch to these, then everyone will be on board.
Yeah, Jay, it's a good question. And as we adjust to issues like this, we do more research into this. We know that the black plastics are difficult to recycle. Many of the off-island recycling places won't even take them if they're mixed in with the regular plastic.
Sure.
There are alternatives that we find as we go around.
All right, there's plenty of them.
This I picked up, believe it or not, at Disney World, where they have tons of takeout.
Yeah.
And it's an alternative. It's not perfect, but they exist. There are other takeout containers that are a little more environmentally friendly. And as we refine what we're doing with questions like yours and burdens that are placed on commercial entities where the customers want to take home something,
Yeah.
we need to figure out how to accommodate it. But
Well, it's like the phone. Everyone here knows you can't use phone, it's not an issue, you can't do it. They're the same with this, they would go to like those BioPack brown container you have there. But there's plenty of things like that, you just can't see the product inside.
right.
But if everyone's on the same playing field, it won't matter.
And you know, there's always ways to circumvent any bylaw. And the idea here is not to impose some kind of plastic police on the commercial entities on the island. The idea is to have them try to cooperate with what we're trying to accomplish in terms of cleaning up litter, protecting the groundwater, and recycling, things of that nature. And it's gonna take a while to get used to, we know that. And any ideas that you guys have, tell us. You're the ones dealing with the manufacturers and distributors. So any feedback and pushback, it'll be good for us to know.
Thank you. That was a very good point, because actually I'm thinking to myself now, I don't know that we have 100% addressed takeout containers, the specific holders. Like I'm not to pick on anybody, but like the Thai house, say, that is a container that's not addressed specifically in this bylaw. It's sort of addressed in the biodegradable packaging regulation, but you raise a good point. There's a loophole to be closed there probably. Other questions? Let me. I don't know who had their hand up first. Let me go behind you to you, and then right back to you.
So just to be clear, the box orders are fine right now.
Fine from a legal point of view, yes.
Okay, so then what is the suggestion to a retailer? We're going to ban single-use plastic water bottles, and we are really sort of not happy about the box order. What is the suggestion that we're using for our customers who come in and want something?
We're trying to deal with that question.
With aluminum, Rob. Make an aluminum water bottle now, which, with this all coming, I would look into having that front end. I don't know what it costs, the paper's a lot of money too.
What does Disney do for water?
So I would actually encourage us to, people are going to be using single-use items and going to need them, but I would encourage us to look beyond single-use items, even if it's not plastic. We are working on having more water bottle refill stations around the island, so encouraging people to bring their own water bottle and use their own water bottle would actually be the number one way to
But
go.
that's not going to happen overnight.
No, it's not. It's a process. We have numerous places already around the island. There's a map that exists in the back that most people are not aware of some of those locations. So outreach is definitely a big part here. And we're looking to adding more around the island. But glass and aluminum are options for containing water that are much better than the boxed water.
And we knew this was gonna be difficult. The water containers are a profit source for many businesses. And taking that away is troublesome. And as we discover new things, boxed water, this kind of water, the containers, the industry is getting better and better at making these containers. This container has various parts to it that are biodegradable, compostable, and only about 8% of it is still plastic. But it could be made out of plant-based plastic. So as we stumble along on this, these types of containers hopefully will get better and better. So I got this at Stop and Shop, and it's a little more expensive than a regular bottled water, but as we adjust our waste stream and how we handle it, this may be a better solution than the plastic ones that we find all over the road. So that was a good question, and you're right, it's something that's developing.
Jason, were you gonna add something to that?
You kind of answered it, but I sell a ton of water at a little coffee shop in July and August. And I did have boxed water, so I, about the gram and how it composts or doesn't compost. In our composter at the landfill, so I've switched 90% of my water to aluminum and glass. And not everybody gets it. Everybody wants the plastics we're used to, but it's changed over 2 months. We've explained to people about the aluminum, about the glass. The glass stays here using aggregate, and it's switching. It's not a ton, it's not everybody. But just in one summer, I've seen a bit of a shift as we educate our customers. So I've taken 90% of my sales, and I'm losing a little bit, because I can't charge $4 to cover the cost of it. But, maybe in the end I'll sell more because people feel better about it. So we will take a little bit of a hit in small businesses.
Thank you for that input. And just sidebar, we are really trying to work on answers to a question like that. What are the replacement materials or items that we can put out there and offer to you? We again, I want to try to help this happen, not, be the plastic police, as Bruce said. You had a question?
Yeah, no, I was just, so, like your water vending machine, the bottles of water, this includes that, yes?
Yes, if it is in that's a good question.
So we're from the hospital, so we have a vending machine that's just all water bottles. And so for us, staff, visitors, patients, obviously, need access to that. So we're facing a little bit of a different,
Bruce, go ahead.
The bylaw has a few exemptions in it. One of them pertains to medical use. And if you can justify it to the health department, it will be exempt. I would be interested to find out if the vending machine could be adopted to a different container. We knew that there were going to be single-use plastics. When I go to Boston for my chemo every 28 days, all these medicines come in bubble packs that have to be disposed of. So we put this exemption in the bylaw, but we don't want that exemption to be abused. So that's why we said, if you think you have an exemption, go to the health department, talk to them, yes, no.
So I guess we don't have yes, it is 100% good answer on this, but specifically in the bylaw, medical packaging and medically required usage are exempted provided no recyclable alternatives are available. So thank you for bringing this up. This is something we're definitely going to have to look into a bit, because I'm thinking now of vending machines like the town building, for example. Even though it hasn't worked for months, there is a vending machine there with plastic water bottles in it, and they are for sale. So technically that would not be allowed. So, but we'll have to get that figured out, because there's a whole lot of vending machines around.
Perhaps you can get together with Jason and see what he's got going and see if that machine is adoptable. Many of those machines you can adjust the way the bottles are put in and contained, so I'd be interested to find out.
This is exactly the type of thing that we're getting at these informational sessions, which is really, really helpful to us to wade through it. Lots of things that haven't really been totally thought of, so thank you very much for bringing that up. Other questions? Anything about the bylaw? Alicia?
Plastic plant pots, is that going to be addressed? At any point, a lot of them come in the black plastic, similar to the takeout from Thai House.
That is an excellent point. That is not covered by this current bylaw, plastic plant containers. We do see those all over the roads. That's a good question. Not covered right now, but maybe we'll add that to our list of things to examine going forward, because I think there are alternatives.
Over the past summer, we've been using a lot of the So there are corn-based products that we're looking into, but it's not easily available.
Okay. That's a good point.
And it goes to another issue that's sort of related to this, that Graham and our folks are working on. What's the future of how we're going to process our trash, including things like this, on the island? As landfills around the country and southeast Massachusetts close, and as technology advances, used to be incineration, bad, then they came up with gasification, still bad. Now they've come up with plasma gasification, which just will solve that problem as well as other problems. But technology-wise, we're in a place. And so the idea is, can we look at modular things or facilities like this? I visited these things all over the country, and the technology is advancing every year. So items like this are something that we have to address, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Excellent point. Jason?
I've been trying to get ahead of this from last spring and winter. So I've been able to talk to Graham here and there. And if I can't use certain plastic, single-use plastics, I've been trying to figure out, well, what's the alternative? And there's not really a great solution. There's better and a little better and different uses. So would we be able to, these with plastic water bottles, almost have like a rating for our composter, for our system? Like, okay, here's a glass bottle. It's not perfect, but here's the advantages of using glass. Here's aluminum, here's advantages for our system and the way we recycle and send it off island. And here's even boxed water. And on a scale of 1 to 10, so we can help make decisions. Because if I knew there was one was the best, but it wasn't making as much money, but it's better for the environment, I might go that route. You know, Graham and I started talking forever here, but our bike tour business, I used to always give out water bottles with a logo on it. And so this year, I said, well, I don't want to send out more plastic. It wasn't single use, we're going to use it again, that's what I thought. So I switched to glass, so it stays on the island, it gets crushed, it gets used. A little weird to be on a bike to have glass, but it was talking to Graham, it was a 20-minute conversation of, well, what's better, and we had to kind of go through all the different options. So it's not easy, but it's been helpful to what's the best of the best, or what's the worst of the worst of the options outside of plastic.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. That's a good idea, kind of a rating system.
Yeah, something on my agenda of things to do is to try to write out kind of the questions I go through and the answers to them that help guide me in helping other people and what's best for our waste system here. And so that is something that I have notes on that hopefully I will have out in the future for businesses and individuals to help them make decisions and be informed and be able to balance those things, cost and their desire to help the environment.
While people are thinking of more questions, just some things that came out of our first session that might be a little bit of interest. One of the things that we sort of turned a light on for us, I think, a little bit was instead of, or in addition to telling people what is banned, what are the alternatives that we know of now? Yeah, thank you, Bruce. So for example, the non-recyclable coffee pods. You'll still be able to have coffee pods, but they must be compostable or reusable, and those are available. We know there's going to be workarounds from people. Amazon is a workaround for the resident. A question came up at our last session: can we just tell Amazon not to ship those items here? No, we cannot. We really can't regulate the products that come in outside of the town. A couple other things as to what is commercial is, say, Don Allen commercial, if they have a K-Cup thing there. No, they're not. Our guest houses that have a K-Cup thing in a room, yes, they are. Real estate offices, no. I'm just trying to think of some other items that came up. Yep.
What's the difference? It seems confusing. Why wouldn't Don Allen and
This is the advice that we got from town council, and I think that the difference is subtle, but when you're in a guest house, you are paying to stay there, and you essentially are potentially paying for that product. At a place like Don Allen or a real estate office, you're not paying to go there. Yes, you're paying to have your car fixed, but you're not, it's not part of your package there.
So we'd have to encourage.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go on a guest house inspection program to see about this, but
And we're hoping that in the spirit of what we're trying to do, that real estate offices and, for example, Don Allen in their in their waiting room would get with the program. You'll see on one of the boards there's probably 10 or 15 companies that make K-pods that fit in these same brew machines that are totally biodegradable. Not compostable, biodegradable. There's a plant-based plastic ring that supports it. There's a hemp lid, a mesh filter, and that's it. And it works in those containers. Carrot even sells a reusable K-cup. It's an example on the board. So in the spirit of what we're trying to do, we're hoping that, as you mentioned, real estate offices and others that don't quite fit into what the bylaw says and town council has determined is commercial, we're hoping they would join in the spirit of what we're trying to do to protect Nantucket's environment.
yes.
So what sort of outreach and education is being done for our guests and tourists who are coming to the island? You know, how are we, you know, we're being educated as commercial business owners, but, you know, what is going to be done so that they can walk into our stores maybe already somewhat knowledgeable about
Sure.
what's going on?
Excellent question. We have a couple of ideas that we haven't entirely launched yet, but one of them is meeting with the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers to see if there are brochures or other, things like this that can be put into mailings to potential rental people. We're talking about a video that would be potentially on NCTV. We're talking about doing a little tour ride around with Gino. It would go on his channel. The radio has a PSA, and we're going to be stepping up a lot of things like that as we go through the fall and winter. Any ideas that people have? Steamship and Highline are a little bit challenging because they don't really want videos played on their TVs. For a number of different reasons, but we are going to definitely be talking to them about that, probably posters on the boats. At the airport, there is a video opportunity out there. Does anybody from the work group remember other things we talked about, Janet?
Chamber guidebook in our channel.
Thank you. Chamber guidebook and the travel and leisure guide. The information would go in there, town website.
Is there any way that we can find what's the number one hits online of Nantucket websites and be able to encourage those particular websites that have, a
That's-
pop-up that comes out right away?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't know, but there must be a way to figure that out.
When people are searching to come have vacation on Nantucket.
That's a great idea.
And perhaps when folks make a reservation at a guest house or a hotel, as part of the reservation process, they could be informed that this is what's going on here.
The Lodging Association, I forgot to mention, is another group to tackle with the guests. ACT.net might be a good place for that idea. Other questions? Thoughts, comments? Anything? Jason?
I'm just gonna fill the void, so. Something else I've been doing, my manager at our coffee shop was really into this, and she went through, we did a self-audit of everything we use, behind the bar, what we sell, for what single use, waste streams. We did an audit, so I know Graham and Lydia have already talked to me about this, coming up with some way. We either can clone Graham, make 20 of her, or find a way to work with Remain of having voluntary audits. So if somebody can come in and help me, say, okay, here's 6 different options you can do here, and the business can decide if they can afford it or not. But at least, even things that aren't in this ban, just ways to be more environmentally conscious. Even like your systems, where do you throw your coffee grinds away? Some kind of audit. I know that's a big thing to put together for next year, but that would be helpful. It's got to be voluntary.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, and we have started talking about that internally, how to implement something like that. We've also talked about things like, we haven't really totally developed this yet, but partnering up with businesses for water filling stations and figuring out a way to get water bottles to them, reusable, and also maybe business testimonials kind of things that could be posted online or put on little spot videos here and there, or Instagram stories, things like that, where people are sharing how they are working to comply, stuff like that. So we haven't totally launched it yet, but we've been talking about how to get that kind of thing out. Linda?
I think you should contact the Veritas and get the children involved as well.
That's a great idea. Yeah, Veritas. Yep. Excellent. Thank you. They could be.
Maybe the student council.
Yeah.
Or somebody looking for community work because the children have to sign up so many hours. Maybe a little club could be happening. Get children involved.
Excellent.
That's the
School
thing
committee,
about
heard that.
Virginia. They've got all these 5th graders running around to each town, meeting with the town councils, urging them to do this. And it's very impactful when the kids are doing it, because in addition to feeling good and doing it, their message is they're going to inherit what we're doing today, and they want to become involved. So that's a great idea.
A couple of years back, I believe the juniors had a water bottle in the middle of the corridor, and they had a big, what do you call that, chicken net? And they kept filling in the bottles and asked how many bottled water I served, and how much they collected throughout the whole year, and really good service. Our water fountains have the really modern where you can put in a container, your recyclable container. So
Yep.
being at the school and I sell bottled water, I've already taken the next step in looking and researching into alternatives for the children. And one would be maybe a cup or a container that they could purchase, like maybe a little stand that they could use in-house, or have the parents encourage them to bring in a recyclable bottle per day.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? And they can still fill it up, and our water is really delicious, and the things are always very good. So I'm happy with that. As far as the containers that you have here, that you can't do a visual, what I do at school is I'm using those clamshells by this package one that you have here with the hoagie on it. No, the long one, sir. Yes, you can't see it, but you can put a sticker on it. What is the product inside? You can also make a nice little photo of what you're trying to sell. Like say it's a chef salad, you can make a nice little photo and put it in front of the non-visual containers with a label on it. That's one way of marketing it, which I would do at school.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
I've
That's how I
spoken,
started getting rid of some of my plastic.
I've spoken to a couple of businesses on the island about working with students, possibly to even come up with a water
That's
bottle
the container I was looking into.
with, they could put the Whaler logo on it, they could put their business logo on it, they could have a little blank spot here where the kids could put their name on it. One of the issues that I came up with was, well, the the support groups for the whalers, the parent support group. You know, we don't wanna take away revenue stream from them in terms of them selling these bottles with the whaler logo on it. But I think there's a way to cooperatively work with entities on the island. Remain, some of the banks could put their little logos on it, give them to kids as they transition from elementary school to high school or even before that. And not only is it reusable, but it's something they could have their whole high school career unless, you know, they lose them and they get replaced. But these are a good idea, and they're easily refillable at those stations, those water stations.
There are, the Boosters Club does have large plastic, exactly what you're talking about, but I guess maybe that's what we are trying to get away from. But I'm just mentioning they do have something that's reusable.
An idea that we have a water bottle refill working group as a subcommittee of this, and something we've been talking about is possibly replacing the plastic water bottles in the vending machines with a reusable water bottle. So if somebody's out and needs a reusable water bottle and there's a refill station nearby, they can buy one, so that they can access that water if they don't have a container too.
Yes.
What about the distribution we did at the 4th of July with Remain?
Yeah, do you want to mention that?
Sure, this past 4th of July, the town and Remain purchased aluminum water bottles with our logo on them and Remain's logo on them, and an address, a URL address for where to find those water filling stations on your smartphone. We gave away 750 of those in 40 minutes, and I don't know how many you guys have you given all those away?
We still have a few left out.
Yeah. And each one of them came with a little tag on it that talked about the band. So we started this public outreach effort. Actually, it's in this year's Travel and Lodging Guide too about the water bottle ban. So the word is going out. I have a feeling that a lot of the nonprofits are going to get on the bandwagon and start selling water bottles at their sites, reusable water bottles with their logos on it.
I just volunteered for a couple of hours setting up the pops, and I was astonished by how much plastic is distributed there. And I asked the folks there, I said, what are you gonna do next year when all these plastic containers are not permitted here? And they kind of were a little bit astonished, like, oh, I guess we should start looking into that. So there's all these tentacles out there of how we're gonna deal with these issues that are very interesting, and we're gonna have to adjust as we go along.
One thought of, been in the restaurant business for 20 years here, and I've learned from Jay over the years that if there's, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, that, you know, US Foods and Sysco's and Trimarks, if there's enough demand, there's enough of their customers asking for certain things, then they can put them in their bins and they can give them purchasing power, and they go to their suppliers and say, we need more of this. But if it's just one or two business saying, hey, Jay, you need to get this and this so I can get on the truck, it's hard for them, it doesn't make business sense for them. But if overall, if you're getting 10, 20, 30, 100 businesses asking for a certain thing, I think, Jay, it's easier for you to stock it and.
No, absolutely, as demand increases, they'll bring it in. And this goes back to the container thing, because we brought in all these containers that I talked to Roberto on, and I'm telling people, you should use this. And they'll say, well, out of the tie house thing, there's one example, well, they're using the black bottom. And I say, yeah, they can. So people won't make the switch. We
Yeah.
can make it mandated, that
Yeah.
everyone has to use it.
Yeah.
Linda was saying, these containers are fine. I mean, visually, you can't see the product, but you could make nice labels, you could have a photo.
Yeah.
Or there's also the aluminum rounds, which they could do and make them have a compostable top, but you have to
Yeah.
mandate it and say, this is what you have to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if everyone's on the same page, then everyone will just do it. If you give them out, they'll take it.
That's interesting to me. Graham has examples of 6-pack holders here that maybe she can hold up. These are not great, but they're not entanglement issues, and they're a little bit easier to process and less of a litter issue. And interestingly enough, there's several breweries now, microbreweries, that are taking their barley and wheat waste and compressing it into six-pack holders similar to this cardboard one that's here, is actually edible. If it gets in the water, I'm not saying you should eat it, Jay, but it's edible in terms of the sea animals that are ingesting this, the turtles and whatnot. It's safe for them, it doesn't kill them. And I don't know if it's possible here, I haven't even talked to them, but we have a microbrewery. And who knows if Nantucket can come up with its own brand. Carlsberg Brewer, one of the biggest brewers in the world, is abandoning the flexible holders. They've developed a little glue that attaches to the can, sticks them together, and it's just as strong as a six-pack holder, a flexible one. So these industries, as you said, if the demand is there, they'll adapt, and the technology is there. Carlsberg is introducing this in Europe now, and it's been very effective there, very popular, and there's no adverse effect to the retailers that are selling those beer six-packs.
Other questions or comments? Anybody from the work group want to add anything?
Maybe I'll just add real quick, even though I don't put it here. There was some confusion at the last info session about which yolks will be banned. Really, we're looking at, this is a flexible yolk. This is not. We're really talking about this truly, really flexible one. This is a 4-pack one, so it will not be banned. This one, because it's 6, will be. Just the terminology used in the bylaw restricts it to this.
Anything else? Okay, if people have questions, if you think of questions later, please feel free to email that email that I gave. It's also on the handout up at the front, back of the room here. And our next informational session is on, does anybody know off the top of their head? September 19th at 6 p.m. We're really trying to capture all times of day to get people to come. So some of our next steps are going to be things like scheduling, as I mentioned, more focused meetings with specific businesses like the package stores, groups like Cumberland Farms, Stop and Shop. We have a meeting scheduled with them in September. We did a little tour with them in the spring in preparation for this, and they do have some plans for some items. We want to have a discussion with them about, we don't really know if this will work or not, but it was something that we came up with about a kind of an industrial filling station, water filling station at the front there, because as you pointed out, there are people who are not going to know about this when they come here next summer and they go to Stop and Shop and they try to buy a case of water. They're not going to be able to do that, but perhaps there can be water bottles there with this, or big containers of water that they could potentially get. It's something we got to work through. Anyway, there's a lot of avenues to this whole thing, but a lot of these suggestions are really good, and there are a couple things that we hadn't really thought of, so we really appreciate people bringing those forward. That's what this informational session is hopefully all about. So thank you all very, very much for taking the time to come out. Hopefully it wasn't too much effort, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.